In the Soviet Union, large cars were treated with special respect. One such car was the Pobeda. It was an impressive vehicle standing out for its size and luxury. This car attracted attention, but by the mid-1950s it was already considered outdated. At this time, the USSR was competing with the United States, and the country needed to be ahead. The slogan was "Let's catch up with and overtake America." A new car was needed to become a symbol of progress. Two projects were being actively developed, Zvezda and Volga. They each had unique features, but Volga was chosen as the most promising. The Volga car was a real breakthrough in the Soviet automotive industry. Its elegant design was decorated with many chrome details, and the interior could be transformed. The chassis was lubricated centrally using a button in the cabin, which was rare at that time. The body was load-bearing, which was also an unusual solution for those years. A particularly notable feature of the Volga was its automatic transmission, which was also rare for Soviet cars. The scale of work on creating this innovative car was truly impressive. By 1956, after 5 years of hard work and thousands of kilometers of testing, Volga was ready and presented to Marshal Zhukov for approval. His approval and permission for mass production were essential for this car to become reality. An independent suspension was installed in front of this car and a dependent axle in the rear. A variety of interesting design solutions were used to create the body, and the hood features an image of galloping deer that gives the car special charm and expressiveness. Two transmission options were available, mechanical or automatic. Judging by information from newspapers, the automatic option was in high demand, and a 65-horsepower engine, though not new, was planned to be replaced with a more powerful 75-horsepower model a year later. The car turned out beautiful and luxurious, but Marshal Zhukov still found things to complain about. The car's radiator grille caused a mixed reaction. It resembled Western patterns and did not correspond to the patriotic spirit. Everyone was trying to understand what Marshal Zhukov meant, but his criticism was taken into account. As a result, the car went into production with a radiator grille, which was the most patriotic of all possible. A huge patriotic-style star was installed on Soviet cars. In 1956, this car caused a great stir among Soviet citizens with its shape, luxury, and price 40,000 rubles. In the post-war Soviet Union, wages were quite low. However, it wasn't just the size of income that made buying a car almost impossible for ordinary people. Volga cars were mainly distributed to government employees, prominent scientists, artists, industry leaders, successful athletes, and other significant representatives of Soviet society. For example, owners of Volgas included such famous personalities as Gagarin, Vysotsky, and Nikulin. Buying a Volga car immediately attracted attention, including from law enforcement agencies. There were questions: where did you, citizen, earn such money? How did you manage to purchase a car? Of course, there was the possibility of winning a car in a lottery, but that was unlikely. It was also possible to buy a car from shady dealers at a price 2 or even 3 times the market price. Due to shortages, old cars sold for more than new ones, which was illegal. Gradually, Volgas, albeit slowly due to their high cost, started appearing on city streets. After several years of waiting, wealthy people and officials in positions of power could finally afford a luxury Volga. However, those cars were not plentiful, as nearly 40% went to taxi companies, both Soviet and foreign ones. The Volga was exported to 75 countries around the world, including Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Belgium. Western countries could immediately purchase Soviet cars, paying full price for them. However, at first, Volgas were not actively bought abroad. This was due to the large star on the radiator grille, which caused mixed reactions during the Cold War. The symbol of communism intensified the confrontation between two systems, and the struggle between capitalism and communism was well known. Just 2 years after sales began, the star grille was replaced by a vertical stripe grille in order to increase profits. After the replacement, sales of Volgas increased significantly, and taxi companies from different countries actively purchased them. In the Soviet Union, owning a Volga had special status. Getting such a car was incredibly difficult, especially in the 1950s and 1960s. Some people managed to obtain one, although they were not always the most law-abiding citizens. The hero of the movie Beware of the Car, Yuri Dototkin, stole cars from those who had trouble saving money. He sold them on and gave the money to orphanages. The Volga was a dream for any car enthusiast, with its sturdy and beautiful design, especially in its two-color versions. However, at the start of its production, it had some drawbacks. Over time, the automatic transmission that the creators were so proud of could not always handle the conditions in the USSR. The transmission itself was reliable if properly maintained. But such care could only be provided by residents of large cities such as Moscow and Leningrad. In addition, the USSR did not produce oil needed for an automatic transmission. Due to its shortage, some motorists abandoned automatic transmission in favor of manual one. As a result, no more than 700 Volga cars with automatic transmission were produced, after which only manual transmission was used. There were also complaints about brakes without booster, imperfect design of handbrakes and heater, which could be improved. However, these are minor issues. Owning such a car was a privilege available only to a few. At that time, the World's Fair was held in Brussels, which became the largest event after World War I ended. Countries from all over the world showed their achievements, and the Soviet Union was not left behind, presenting its development at the exhibition. The exhibition featured a large-scale model of the first nuclear icebreaker Lenin, as well as models of the first satellite Earth. The USSR also showed off its cars, GAZ-13 Cheka, ZIL-111 Moskvich, 407 GAZ-53, and MAZ-525 trucks, along with the new Volga GAZ-21. One pavilion was dedicated entirely to the achievements of Soviet industry. Other nations, including the US, also showcased their exhibits. The scope of the event was impressive, but before it even opened, a major scandal erupted. Representatives of the United States of America expressed dissatisfaction with the fact that, in their opinion, the Soviet Union violated copyrights. They stated that Cheka and Volga cars had similarities with Packard and Ford models. Many noted that Volga had a lot in common with mainline Ford, especially the pre-styling model with a star on the front, and even the deer on its hood looked like a 1932 Chrysler Imperial deer. Indeed, some engineers who worked on Volga creation had internships at Ford, and in 1954 the plant purchased two mainline Fords to study automatic transmission. The situation was not simple, as world newspapers actively discussed the incident. There was a risk of car arrest, which could seriously damage the reputation of USSR. Representatives of the Soviet Union contacted Ford and Packard companies, but it turned out that American companies had no claims against Soviet cars. Perhaps this was a provocation from the special services, or the Americans had changed their minds and did not want to spoil relations with the USSR, given that Khrushchev was supposed to pay a friendly visit to the United States the following year. Or perhaps both sides simply did not want to exacerbate tensions in light of the escalating Cold War. The scandal eventually died down, and the USSR even received the top prize at the exhibition as a recognition of its achievements and those of its people. This concludes the story. The Soviet-made Volga car may have been another point of contention in the already strained relations between the two superpowers, but despite this, it has won over the hearts of citizens within its borders. Yes, few people could afford it. Huge queues and high costs still prevented millions of people from realizing their dreams. Nevertheless, Volga cars were supplied to the police, and the station wagon bodies, which appeared later, were used as ambulances. Almost all taxi services were equipped with Volgas. The car was also sold successfully abroad, and China even expressed a desire to set up its own production. In 1965, pre-production of the Dongfeng Hongdai by 760 began, an almost identical copy of the Soviet Volga. A total of 238 vehicles were assembled. But then the USSR and China fell out, and that ended the cooperation. Now let's take a closer look at one of the most interesting modifications of the Volga car. This vehicle was used by special services for performing special tasks such as escorting motorcades and conducting surveillance. Intelligence agents often monitored diplomats and ambassadors who drove powerful foreign-made vehicles. Ordinary Volgas could not compete with these vehicles in terms of speed, but there was a special variant of the GAZ-21 Volga equipped with a 5.5-liter government-issue engine. This engine produced 195 horsepower and made the car into a true racing machine. If the standard Volga could reach 100 kilometers per hour in around 32 seconds, the Kia modified version with an automatic transmission could achieve this in just 16. This was impressive for the late 1950s. Externally, the modified Volga did not look any different from other cars, but the body was strengthened and the suspension had been modified. The black car was supposed to blend harmoniously into the general flow and not attract too much attention. It was a real muscle car in the Soviet way, but everyone in the USSR wanted to drive fast, and, oddly enough, taxi drivers from Latvia wanted to be the fastest. Interestingly, it was in Riga that Soviet NASCAR originated. In 1963, Riga taxi drivers staged crazy races in which only Volga cars participated. This was understandable because these were the only cars available in TASs. Decommissioned Volgas were used to create fast and dangerous racers. Outwardly, these cars might seem inconspicuous, but their engines, gearboxes, and rear axles were always in perfect condition, as victory depended on them. The Zvezda and Volga race became so popular that, after a few years, participants began coming from all over the Soviet Union. Riders were exhibited not only by taxi companies, but also by Ministry of Internal Affairs, fire departments, and various factories. There were always many spectators at the races. Where else could you see expensive, scarce cars speed at high speeds, turning over and crashing? Probably each of us has at least once dreamed of owning a car that we could love and cherish. However, in motorsport, regardless of how much damage the driver caused, he had to repair his vehicle for the next race. The GAZ-21 Volga was produced for 24 years. During this time, its appearance changed significantly. The deer disappeared from the hood, which was dangerous for pedestrians and often became an object of theft. After 3 updates in 1970, the GAZ-21 was replaced by the new model GAZ-24. There is a video on my channel about this model. This car has also become a dream for ordinary people, but that is another story.